Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Let's learn computer science. Welcome to day 9 session of 21 days Python masterclass. Our today's topic is functions in Python. In today's session, we'll be covering types of functions in Python along with what functions are. Also creating user-defined functions and how they help in decomposition of bigger problems. Understanding arguments and parameters in a function, along with default parameters and positional parameters. We'll also cover functions that return values, along with flow of execution in functions. And we'll cover scope of variables as well, including both global and local scope, right? So let's start our today's session. First of all, we'll understand what functions are. To understand functions, consider a bigger problem in your life, how you deal with it. If you ask me, in my personal life, when I encounter a problem in my life, I try to break it down into, one step at a time. I try to solve it. So one task in hand at a time, then move on to the next, and then next, and then next. Instead of dealing with the whole problem situation in one go, I divide it into smaller tasks and then I deal with it. So functions are also used in similar situations. Basically, functions are blocks of reusable code that perform specific tasks. So a set of statements given a name, they perform a specific task, and you can use that as many times as you want. So they help in breaking down complex problems into smaller and manageable parts. You define the function once and call or use multiple times in a program code. Defining means writing the statements to do a particular task, right? Now, functions are basically of two types: user-defined and built-in. User-defined, which are created by the programmer to deal with some specific problems. However, built-in functions, they are provided along with the programming software. So these built-in functions are saved in the library of your programming language. For example, if you talk about Python, so there are some functions which are already there for your use. As and when you want to use, you just use that function name, call it in your program. For example, very frequently you use input function, you use print function. These are inbuilt functions only, right? You can use them as and when you want, as many times you want to use them, right? So functions basically are blocks of reusable code that perform specific tasks, right? Now, how do we create user-defined functions? That is what we are going to understand in today's session. So defining functions means how will you tell that what that function is going to do? So there is a syntax. You use def keyword whenever you have to define a function. So you start with def, then function name, that can be any valid identifier name, right? We have covered naming conventions and rules about variable names in our day 1 Python session. So you can revisit day 1 session to understand what are valid identifier names or what are the naming conventions to give a variable name, right? Now, after the function name, you put parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you write parameters. This can be one parameter or it can be multiple parameters, right? If multiple, then you separate them by a comma. After writing the parameters, you close the parentheses and there is a colon then. Colon is very, very important to put, because once you put colon, rest of the statements that you write, they'll be part of the function that you are defining. So indentation will come automatically. And once you're done with writing all these statements which are part of the function name, you can just come out of that indentation or come out of that block by removing the indentation, right? So that is how we define a function. This is the syntax. Now there is one example for you. You write DEF, function name I have written, greet, then parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, I have written a parameter name, name, then parenthesis closed, colon. Inside the function body, I have written just one statement, print, and then hello name, and name is the parameter which I have passed. Now this is function definition. Well, once you write it, it will just define that what that function has to do. It will not do anything until or unless you call that function. Now, what is calling a function and how do we do that? Now, to call a function, we just simply write their name followed by the arguments written inside the parenthesis, right? So function name, parenthesis, arguments. So whatever parameters you have passed, their values you write here, close the parenthesis, and you are done. There is one example for you. So greet, inside the bracket, I have written ls in quotes because ls is a string. So that is why I have kept it in double quotes. You can keep it in single quotes as well. So now once this function is called, the control will go here. Here, instead of name, ls value is passed and it will enter inside the function body, print hello. So hello will be printed along with it plus name. So name is ls. So here ls will be printed and then one exclamation mark sign will be printed. So hello ls, and this symbol will be printed as the output. Once this is executed, then control will go to the next statement, whatever is there in the program. So that is how functions are defined and called inside a program. Next, let's understand arguments and parameters in detail. So as you have seen, there are parameters in the definition and there are arguments in the call of the function, right? So let's understand. Parameters are basically placeholders in the function definition, and arguments are the actual values passed to the functions. So when you define the function, you put whatever parameters that function can take. However, when you call a function, you provide values to those parameters. So parameters are the placeholders and arguments are the actual values which will be passed to the function, right? Now, parameters, they receive values from the arguments during a function call. Whenever you call a function, you put some arguments there. Those arguments, whatever values are there, they will be passed to the parameters. And then during the function call, those values are exchanged. So there is one example. Define add a comma b. So this is function definition. I'm defining it. A function name add. There are two parameters, a comma b, and return a plus b. We'll cover what this return statement is. As of now, you just understand there is return a comma b. And then when I call that function, I write result is equals to add 3 comma 5. Here, a and b, these are parameters, and 3 and 5, these are arguments, and these values will be passed to a and b respectively, right? Now, there is an extension to the parameters and arguments. So what are default parameters and positional parameters? Let's understand that. Now, default parameters, whatever parameters you are passing during a function definition, they can have some default values assigned. In case you do not provide any arguments during the function call, that time the default values which are provided along with the function definition, those values will be used, right? For example, let's see this example. So define exponent base comma power is equals to 2. Now here I'm providing one default value to second parameter, which is power. First parameter is base, which is not having any value. However, second parameter, which is power, I'm giving it a default value. In case during a function call, I do not put any value for power, there is no argument given for power parameter, then the default value, which is 2, will be used. Inside the function body, I have just returned base exponent power. So whatever base value will be, that will be calculated using exponent operator. If you want to revisit what this exponent operator is, then you can watch my day 3 video, operators in Python, and you'll understand what is the function of this operator, right? Now, I have written here 2 function calls. One, I'm just simply printing during the function call, I'm just printing it, exponent 3. Here I have only provided one value. So second value will be taken as default value for power. Because there should be 2 values. However, I have not given second value. So second value will be default value, which is going to be used here. In the second call, I am passing 2 and 3. So first value is for base and second value is for power. So here 2 will be used for base, 3 will be used for power, and default value will not be used, right? So that is how default parameters are set for a function definition. Now, positional parameters. Parameters, they are matched by their position in the function call. So order of arguments matters. So here 2 can't be assigned to power and 3 can't be assigned to base. So the order in which these parameters are defined, arguments, they'll be passed in that manner only. So if you look at this example, define divide A comma B and return A divided by B. So here, when I'm calling a function divide 10 comma 2, so 10 is value for A and 2 is value for B. It can't be other way around, right? So A is having 10 and B is getting 2 as value. So order of arguments matter. Next is functions returning values. We have just seen few examples with return keyword. Now let's understand what is that. Now functions, they can return values using return statement. How? Return stops function execution and sends a value back. So you can assign that value in some variable. You can simply print that also using print statement. However, if you want to assign that value, so that function will return some value which you can save in some variable. Now, let's have an understanding of this. So let's say we are defining a function multiply where we are passing 2 parameters A and B, and inside the body we are writing return A multiplied by B. So here it will return multiplication of the parameters which are passed. Now during the call, I'm writing result is equals to. Now because it is returning some value, so I am returning it and saving it in some variable, right? So result is equals to multiply. Multiply is function name. Then 4 comma 5. So 4 is value for A, 5 is value for B. So it will return 20 and 20 will be saved in result. Later you can use it anywhere in the program or you can simply print it. It's up to you. However, it can return and it can save some value in any variable. If you want, you can do that. So that is how functions, they return values. Now, flow of execution in functions. When a function is called, execution jumps to the function. After the execution, control returns to the point of call. The function's local variables exist only during its execution. We'll understand what local and global variables are. However, as of now, you just understand that when a function is called, execution jumps to the function where the function is basically defined. After the execution, control returns to the point of the call, and whatever next statement is written, that will be executed. Right? And function stack, functions are stacked on top of each other in the memory. The topmost function is being executed, and after the execution, it is removed from the stack. Right? So sometimes these 1-marker questions are there that during the execution where these functions are saved, which data structure is used. So you can always say stack is used, right? Now let's understand scope of variables. First of all, you should understand what is scope of variable, and then we'll talk about global and local. So scope refers to where a variable can be accessed. When you create functions and or any programs, you use variables in them. So scope means where that variable can be accessed, whether it's accessed only within a function body or it can be used anywhere. So that is what scope is. Now, global and local, two types of scope is available. Let's understand both one by one. Local scope means variable is defined inside block of code. That block can be a function. And these variables are accessible only within those functions, not outside the function body. Global, these variables are defined on outside functions and can be accessed throughout the code. Any function which is defined, that can use them. Anywhere in the program, you can use those global variables. So they are available, they can be accessed anywhere in the program code, right? However, local, they can only be used within those functions where they are defined, right? This is one example. So global variable, let's say value is written 10, and this is a function which is defined inside the function body. A local variable is having 5 in it. So if I print global variable, I can access it. If I print local variable inside the function body, I can access that as well because it is defined inside the function body. Global is outside, however, because it is global, I can use it inside the function body. Then there is a function call where both these values will be printed, global 10 and 5. 10 is for global and 5 is for local. And I can also print it anywhere else, the global variable. However, if I try to access this local variable, it will raise an error, right? So global variables, they can be used anywhere in the program code, and local, they can only be accessed within the function body where they are defined. Okay. Please remember, a local variable takes precedence over a global variable if they share the same name. So if this name is also global variable and this name is also global variable, so inside the function, precedence will be taken over by local variable over the global variable. Now, let's see some examples using functions. So let's go to Python shell for that. Let's create one function. First of all, let's define a function. So as we know, we use def keyword to define a function. So I'm just creating a function for addition of two numbers. So I'm giving it a name addition, right? Then parenthesis, I'm passing a, comma, b. I'm passing two parameters here. Then colon. Inside this, as of now, I'm just writing sum is equals to a plus b, and then here only I'm printing sum. And now function is defined. I'm coming out of the function block, and here I am calling the function, and to call the function, I just have to write function name, and then I need to pass the arguments. So let's say I want to add 5 and 6. So I pass these two values. Now let's save this and run this. So here, if you see, after execution, it is giving me 11 as an answer, right? So what happens? Now, function is defined, right? This is done, this is done. Now, Python interpreter reaches here where function call is made. So once there is a function call, it will go to the function definition. Here in function definition, we have two parameters and two arguments are here, right? So values are passed respectively. 5 is passed to A and 6 is passed to B. Inside the function, it is very simple statement. Sum is equals to A plus B. So A is 5, 6 is B. So 5 plus 6. So sum is having 11 in it now. And I simply write print. So it has printed 11 here. After the execution, control will again go back to the next statement. There is no statement. So that is why program ended. Okay. Now let's see default values. So if I write here 2, and here also if I write 3, and I do not pass any value here, I simply write addition 5. So I have given default values to both A and B, right? So default parameters are there. Now if I execute, I click on run, save. Now answer is 7. Now why answer is 7? Because I have passed 5, but I have only passed one argument. We need 2, right? So here 5 is passed to A, but for B there is no value, so default value is taken. So 5 plus 2 is 7, so 7 is printed here. Yes. Now let's see one more example. We can also do here, we can take values from user also. So if I write here, let's say x is equals to int input, enter a number, or enter first number you can write, and then I'm taking another value from the user, which is, let's say, y is equals to, so I am writing here enter another number. Okay, and here I write, instead of values, I'm writing here variables x comma y. Let's run this code and save it. Yes, so it is asking me first value, so I'm writing 20. It's asking another number, let's say 10, so answer is 30. Now here values are taken from user, and these values are passed to A and B. X and Y, whatever is having, that is passed to A and B, and it has printed sum of whatever values are passed, right? Now let's see how values are returned. Instead of just printing it here, now I am writing here return sum. And now when I call this, I either can do it this way, print addition, or I can also do it this way, that sum is equals to this statement I can pass here. Right? And then I can print sum. Let's see what answer we get. So run this. So it's asking me for two numbers. Firstly, first number I'm adding 10, second number I'm adding 5. Now it has given me 15, 15 two times. Why? Because once it has printed value when I called function use inside the print statement, and second time it returned value to sum. This call of function returned value to sum, and then I printed sum here. So 2 times 15 and 15. One from this statement and second time from this statement. So return sum here. It has returned it in sum. It's not necessary that if I have written sum here, then I have to write sum here as well. No, you can write here any value. I can write this also. So this will also give me same result. So it's asking me for number, first number, let's say 12, second number 12. So answer is 24 and 24, right? So first call of function printed 24 as sum because I have called it here. Second time, this function call returned value to this variable, and this variable I have printed. So that is why 24 and 24. So that is how functions are created and called. Now it's assessment time. Only 4 questions are there for you. Please pause the video, try to solve these questions, and as usual, I'll display the answer key in the end. Then you can compare your answers, right? So this is the answer key. Hope you have got all right answers. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.